Oisin, it's good to have you on the show. Thanks for jumping on. I guess just to start off, give us a wee rundown of what you've been at, like, because it's been quite a quiet time for a lot of people. But I think you have a fighter or two with a MMA show coming up soon, so you're probably pretty active.
Yeah, no, we've been busy enough. We stay pretty active throughout everything. So I think even when we were in level 3 here down south, the restrictions were that kids could still train as long as it was an outdoor setting and all this kind of stuff. So we kept basically our kids' courses going until this lockdown, which was a full lockdown. So we've been pretty active. The adults, unfortunately, have only been able to train for about 3 months out of the last 12. Which is a nightmare, but we have some fighters, some elite fighters, and some professional fighters fighting in clan wars coming up now. So we've been pretty busy with that. We have a small core group of the competitors that are either competing or supporting them, all elite amateur guys. So we're keeping busy with that now. Some hard rounds. I got my first, was it 5 or 6 consecutive back-to-back 5-minute rounds last night in a very long time. Let me tell you, the body is feeling it today. My neck is just marks everywhere.
So that's MMA sparring for 5 or 6 rounds, Oisin, is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
And who have you got up now? It's Clan Wars. Have you anybody on Cage Legacy or just Clan Wars?
No, we do. We got Cage Legacy as well. We have Daniel Ford, who's fighting Cage Legacy. He's usually a flyweight the day before weigh-ins. He's fighting bantamweight because it's the same day weigh-in for Cage Legacy. So we have Daniel up on that, one of my blue belts, and a very good kickboxer as well, very exciting guy. And then we have Alex, who's making his pro debut, Alexander Yankov. So he's making a pro debut in Clan Wars, fighting Ryan Shelley from Team KF. So that's going to be a banger. Can't wait for that fight.
Yeah. And, how is he for it? Is he in good form?
Oh, he's unbelievable. Seriously, he is unbelievable. Like Alexander, honest to God, he's one of the best guys in the country. And he started training with me when he was 18. So he's 26 now. It's 8 years nonstop. He had no background before. So my take on preparing guys from that point for MMA is I don't believe in guys just preparing or just training in MMA from day one. Because I think realistically, they'll end up being fairly poor in everything rather than, solid on their feet, solid on the ground. So Alexander is like ISK, that's one of his belts up there. He's ISK National Kickboxing Champion. Achieved that. He is one of my purple belts, and he absolutely dominated through the blue belt ranks over the last 2 years. I think submitted about 80% plus submission rate in his matches. He was smashing his way through everybody, and he's just super strong on the feet, super strong on the ground. But the last year has just been spent trying to put it together now, so kind of get that MMA mix right for him, because he has Alex's secret is he has, I think, 13 MMA fights. But only 9 of them are listed if you go onto Tapology. So he's got wins over, I think, 3 current pros. He has wins over, and 2 of them are listed on Tapology. So we're happy enough for that. We just kind of let that go. That's no problem. Yeah. Makes people more likely to accept the fight against him. But he's some operator. Very, very exciting.
I was chatting to Oisin McCabe about like game plans and stuff for MMA. Is it harder whenever you're so well-rounded to have a game plan?
No, it's the opposite. Like, because if you're so well-rounded, you'll look at the other guy, and if you're super well-rounded, it presumably implies that you're going to be stronger somewhere else than the other guy is going to be, or he's going to be stronger than you somewhere. Suddenly he becomes a specialist, even though he might be well-rounded himself. He starts to become a specialist as well. So like this camp now, we've been working on nothing but just striking for Alex, because his ground game is so strong, and like right before lockdown, he was winning tournaments all the way up to it. So we've just been working on striking for him nonstop, because he took the time. A lot of people don't know this about him, but he actually dislocated his shoulder maybe 5 years ago, and we kind of had a conversation about it, and it was like, look, you can wait. I actually had the same injury. It's dislocated ligament there on the top of the AC joint, so the AC joint pops up a little bit. It's pretty common with grapplers, but it's about 2 years before that properly heals itself. So I had a conversation with him and said, look, you can either compete knowing that you're basically fighting with one arm and just get the experience in there, or you can not compete and then just hope to build the experience later on. So we said, fuck it, let's compete. He has the right mindset. So, he had mixed results. I think he was like 5-0 or 4-0. Then he blew out the shoulder. Then he had mixed results. But what we did during that whole time was we worked on his kickboxing as well, because he was able to strike. It was lifting with underhooks and stuff like that was the problem. Now it's 100% now. Fine, but it meant that his kickboxing fights, he was just knocking everyone out. Like he won the title. I think it was like knockout, 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 and then I think he TKO'd the champion with low kicks. That's why we call him the Axe, because he has 2 or 3 low kick knockouts or low kick TKOs in his record. I don't know anyone else on the amateur scene that had that. And then basically, while all that success was coming in the kickboxing, he was tipping away with the MMA, knowing that the shoulder was going to come back strong. Finally, now it has. So you should see him in the gym, man. It's
That's brilliant.
Footage. You can keep it private, but he is unbelievable. I can't wait.
And he's in the same card as Adam Darby as well, making his pro debut. Isn't that right?
Right. Yeah, plank, 100%.
So it's potentially a big night for the Ryano affiliate as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few others. I think on both shows from Ryano. I know Mikey Quinn, I think is competing. Or sorry, Taylor Quinn is competing as well on Cage Legacy. So. And there should be a few other Ryano bodies. I think Brian Draper, if I remember correctly.
I think Draper's on it as well.
Yeah, I think he's competing too. So it's great. Great to see the competition team now for Ryano pushing it.
Brilliant. Oisin, Kieran, I'm going to pass over to you and you can start firing away a few questions.
Yeah, so we have a few questions from the Instagram story, Oisin. So
Sweet.
Don't know where to start. We'll go with I suppose what does the future for compound martial arts look like?
I'll tell you what the goals are. The goals are to expand from where we are now. Just through success and numbers, we were flying up until before lockdown. I think from actually even past lockdown, I think in July or June, we came back after the first lockdown and we grew by 33% in that period. And we've pretty much maintained that. So we're very, very lucky. We're blessed as a club. We've had huge support from our membership. We've been around for a long time, even though we've only gone full time, maybe 2-3 years ago. We've been around a long time before that in different facets. So we're really well established in terms of our membership. So we're pretty much ready to hit the ground running the moment the lockdown is over. We were planning on having gradings for the kids and stuff there in February. And then we found out obviously in New Year's that that wasn't going to happen. But it just means everything's pushed down the road. The way I look at it is it's all just a slight delay. And then we're just going to continue on the path we were on before. But overall, I mean, the goal is, it's obviously a success of the club. I think for me, it's really important that this club is not just competitively successful and also not just commercially successful, like a big club. I think it has to be a combination of both. What's the point in having lads to look up to if you don't have any kids there to do the looking up and vice versa? So my goal is, to keep expanding the club, move into a bigger premises than we have here, and at the same time, just completely and utterly take over the competition scene in this country. My goal is to be the best coach in the world, and I have no problem saying that whatsoever. That is 100% the goal. I'm not in this to be semi-good. I'm not in this because it's fun. It's all these things, right? But my goal is to be the best. I wake up every morning, I think about martial arts. I go to sleep every night, I think about martial arts. At night, I move my hips a little bit and I do a bit of shadow boxing, So it's just about trying to be the very, very best. And along the way, we're just going to get as much of a family atmosphere as we can and try and spread the martial arts to as many people as possible, because the competition side is huge. I'm a massive, really competitive guy. And everyone's bought into that in our team. We have a really good competition squad now. But I'm a huge believer as well in the benefits of martial arts for everybody. Loads of us in martial arts, we weren't the bully or we weren't the big, strong guy coming up. We were probably on the other end of that spectrum. And the martial arts kind of gave us focus, gave us confidence, gave us a direction. So I've been a huge, I've usually benefited from that myself. From childhood, I've been training since I was 5 years old. And I really want to share that with as mane people as I can. So that's the goal.
Oisin, I love your goal in terms of becoming, the best coach in the world. But have you any competitive goals yourself now, or is it all focused on that?
For me, it's all been focused on coaching. 99% since I was 23. I blew at my back at 23. I've got 6 bulging discs in my back. So it's kind of been a constant struggle to keep myself on the mats. And the way I look at it is I have a responsibility to all my students to be on the mats. I don't want to be a coach that's coaching from the sidelines. I never ever want to be that guy unless it was unavoidable, right? I always want to be on the mats rolling. But the reality for me is like, I'll roll hard one day and it could be 3 or 4 days before I feel like I could even consider doing it again because the back could be at me or something like that. Even I'm trying to push the cardio now. I don't know if you've been watching my Instagram stories, but I'm trying to boost my cardio. I want to get into, you know, competition shape. It's really, really tough for me to do. But one of the problems I have is like running is something I started doing, right? And I always sort of hated running, but I really got into it in the last lockdown. And I blew my back out running. Looking over my shoulder to see if there was a car coming that was crossing the road, I popped one of the discs in the middle of my back again. Not super bad, but bad enough that I was doing the walk of shame home, sort of like a zombie. So I'm just trying to find the right combination that I can push the intensity enough to get the cardio up to a level I'm happy with for competition. And at the same time, not take myself off the mats. It's really, really tricky.
Kieran's going to now try and sign you up for yoga for BJJ.
Oh, that yoga going to help my cardio, Kieran, is it?
You never know, man. There's hard, like, have you ever done proper vinyasa yoga? It feels like a cardio session. It's actually awful.
Yeah.
No, I've done a good bit of yoga over the years as well. Unfortunately, it's not quite fixed the problems that I hoped it would. I've tried everything. I've got one of my good friends I went to college with. He's a sports doctor, PhD and MSc and all that kind of carry on. So I went into him there in January and I said, look, I want you to treat me like a pro athlete. All right. I said, just treat me like I'm a pro athlete. Like, you have to get me back into my sport. So I was in with him twice a week, then once a week. And, you know, we spread it out a little bit more now. He's given me all the rehab exercises and programs, and I'm really doing my very best to push that as much as I can. But like, the reality is I'm 34 now, which is young, right? It's
I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, I'm looking after you, Andy. Don't worry, man. But like, I am 34. So like, I have competed in jiu-jitsu, I've competed in judo, all the way up at every rank. I'm looking to compete in wrestling. Actually, I got my sweet new Cliff Keen knee guards there in the post today. Very excited about these. And the classic ear guards are ready to get bust out, the famous ear guards. So I'm looking to compete in wrestling as well to get that experience and compete as much as I can at black belt. I love competition. I absolutely love it. But for competition goals, it's really just to get my cardio to a point where I'm happy and like really, really feel like I'm giving it my all when I'm out there on the mats competing. Because in the past, like, even in competition, I might have 1 or 2 good matches in me, 1 or 2 good 6, 7, 8 minute matches. And then after that, it's over. I'm done. You know, like, just the body fails me in terms of gas, not injuries or stuff like that, but I just gassed completely. So I really want to try and get the cardio up so I can actually push it at a high level and see what I can do just for myself.
I was actually spoke to Kieran about this a few weeks ago, and it's sometimes hard whenever you've got coaching responsibilities and then also competitive responsibilities at the same competition.
Yeah, well, not even just the competition. I don't think you can do both, personally. No. I don't think, even at a competition, I don't think that you can be the competitor that you can be and be the best coach that you can be. That's just my opinion on it. Because for you to be a great competitor, this game is all about reps, right? No matter what we're doing, striking, MMA, grappling, whatever. It's all about putting the reps in. But if you're putting the reps in one area that's your specific game, it means you're not putting the reps and the time in the other areas, which might be your student's game. You know, because like, Andy, your game's going to be different to mine. You know, Kieran, your game's different to Andy's. And like, you know, we all have our own sort of variety. But I think as a coach, my goal is always that one of my students can come to me and they can go, look, what do I do with this stack pass? Or what am I doing with this float passing? Or what am I doing with this rear naked choke back to whatever? And I should have an answer for them. And if I don't have an answer, I should be able to go find it out pretty quickly. And I think if someone is 100% focused as a competitor, which you should be if you are a competitor, if that is your focus, you should be 100% in that competition mode. I don't think you can be the best coach. So for me, to say like it's 99% for me is coaching. It was enforced on me when I was younger because of injury. But even if I get to the cardio level that I want and stuff like that, to be honest, I'm still not going to be training like I'm training for a competition. I'll put the rounds in, but I'll play with different things. Kieran, you know this from chatting to me, like the amount of things I play with and stuff in terms of different techniques. I'll get good at something and then immediately move on to something else, right? So like 2018, I'm up there as probably having one of the best half guards in the country in 2018, right? And I'll say that there's very, very few competition matches that I've got someone in a half guard and I haven't swept them. In training, it was at a point where you just line people up, come out, starting half guards, you know, sweep. 2019, I almost played no half guard at all. If I wanted to be a competitor, if that was the goal, I'd still be doing half guard because it's the A game. But instead, I'm playing with different stuff, X guard, or I'll try playing like De La Hiva or something like that. You know, I get bad influences from Steve O'Toole with the De La Hiva guard, but just always trying to find something new and expand the game as a coach is the goal for me. So if I can get into good cardio shape and I can compete and like push myself in competition, I'm happy with that. You know, if I want to compete and win, I need to do that. And I also need to be drilling just specifically my own stuff. And I don't think that belongs within a coach.
I understand. See what you're saying as well. Like there's people at every club that are like a black belt at something, and you might have a blue belt that's really good at something. Will you get that blue belt to show the technique, or will you do it yourself?
It depends. Like if I felt that one of my students was better at me than at a position, then I would 100%. Yeah. And I'm sure it has happened. It definitely has happened in the striking anyway. Like I've multiple national champions in kickboxing. So I'll have them come down and show a little bit of their game. You know, we have team captains for MMA, jiu-jitsu, and kickboxing as well here in the club. So I'll ask a certain member, I want you to be team captain for the kickboxers, right? And what that means is that just puts a little bit of responsibility on him to push the kickboxing side of things, push different guys that want to compete. You know, you got to get down, you got to put these reps in, blah, blah, blah. So it's not just coming from me, but all these guys also happen to be champions. So I'm more than happy to let them teach a technique or two. But like, yeah, I mean, if I felt someone was better at something, I would. But as it stands currently, we're a young enough club. Our top grade after myself, that's been brought up here at least. We have a brown belt in the club now as well. But our top grade that's been brought up from scratch is a purple belt. So just been plain and simple, I probably have a better understanding of the technique than he does at this stage.
No, that makes sense. Kieran, fire another question.
So tell us about your lineage and why is it important to you? You can guess who asked that question if you want.
I don't know. That could be a trap, or it could be students. I don't know. Was that
your boss?
The boss.
Boss. Yeah, I mean, so lineage for me, I'll probably have a funny answer to this. Lineage for me, it's very important, and it also doesn't really mean that much to me at the same time. So I'll explain what I mean. I'm very, very proud to be an Andy Ryan black belt. Very, very proud, because I have massive respect for Andy. You know, I mean, the guy, judo legend in Ireland, you know, and then made the switch, jiu-jitsu all the way up, second jiu-jitsu black belt in this country. And it's just a monster as well. I always tell people at seminars with Andy, I always tell people, look, I have no recollection of ever scoring on Andy, ever, in all the years, you know, that I've trained with him. It's 15 years now coming up on. And I mean that. I would remember as well. I'm that guy, you know. I'd be like, remember that time? I'm that guy, right? And I don't have any recollection of ever scoring on him. So Andy is super, super legit. He's been nothing but a good influence for me as well. You know, I've huge respect for him. He'd be a quieter man than I am in some ways and answering some questions, but it's very important for me in that regard, the respect element, you know. I mean, it's Team Ryano, right? Team, honor, loyalty, respect. The respect side of things, I'm very, very proud to be a Team Ryano black belt. I have huge respect for all the coaches. I also think people lean into the lineage thing a bit too much though as well. Because I think, for example, let's say you learned directly from Helio Gracie. Use that as an example, right? People would say that's a big deal for lineage, yeah? But does that mean that your jiu-jitsu is better than somebody who's gone through 5 or 6 levels or 7 or 8 levels of top world-class competitors, you know? Not necessarily. Because each guy that passes on the information to someone else, that's going to get added to, and then it gets passed to someone else, and then that's going to get added to. So I don't know if the lineage thing in that regard is as important, but as a respect thing, and you know, been proud of where you come from, I couldn't be prouder to be a Team Ryano black belt.
Sounds good. I remember one of the questions from yesterday as well, and it's a favorite takedown.
Favorite takedown? It's probably the one I don't do, which is double leg. I struggle with a lot of the basic wrestling stuff. Well, more the double leg is the main one. I struggle with the double leg just for the back issues, but I think that's probably the most important takedown, because you can hit that in gi, no gi. You can't hit it on judo, unfortunately, anymore. But and then MMA as well. So I think if you have a really good double leg, you can cross over through multiple elements of the sport, whether it's the MMA, the gi jiu-jitsu or the no gi jiu-jitsu. So I think that's the most important, and that makes it my favorite. I love practicing them. I just don't go for them all that much live, just again because of the back. I don't like getting sprawled on or hitting hips that heavy. My favorite one to do myself when I'm actually competing is probably Tomoe Nage. And the reason is I've had a lot of success with it. I've hit a lot of them in competition, but I'm a big advocate of not pulling guard. I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean like you should never pull guard, but I think I had this discussion on the Northern Team Ryano chat, right? Where I was saying to develop a fighter or develop a jiu-jitsu guy, I think it's easier to learn how to pull guard, which is why so many guys do it. I don't think that requires an insane amount of reps. It's pull, get your grips, go, right? So I think that you would be better invested in your time developing some basic takedowns. And if you are going to pull guard, why not add a takedown into that mix? So like Tomoe Nage, it's a sacrifice throw. If anyone doesn't know it, essentially you put your foot in the hip, you go back, or you can go Yoko Tomoe Nage where you spin underneath and you look to elevate and sweep your partner. So you're actually doing the sweep as you're pulling guard. So I don't see why you wouldn't always go for that option, because if the person doesn't get swept, you pull them into your guard. So it's a nice little 1-2 punch. Obviously, it only works in the gi. You're not going to Tomoe Nage some lad grab his nipples or something like that, or his chest hair. But that'll be my favorite takedown. I love that one.
I love just when we're chatting about guard pulling as well, and I suppose that's probably why a double leg is a very good takedown, because like two people have intentions to do what they want to do on grips. If you both get grips and you both want a takedown and you're both at the same skill level, you've probably both got a 50-50 chance to get the takedown. Whereas if one player wants to pull guard and grips happen, the person that wants to pull guard probably has a higher percentage chance of getting to where they want to be. Whereas if you're shooting a double leg, you don't need to rely on grips.
Absolutely. And even flipping that. So let's say you want to pull guard. You've got good grips. Double leg is the best way to get there. So if you shoot a double leg on a guy and take your grips as you're coming in, a lot of the time as he goes to defend, you can just let the hips slide through and then pull your guard. You know, that's quite common. You see in a high level of competition in the gi. That's a really, really common way the guys will get to the grips that they're looking for.
On the conversation that we had on the Northern page, you had a policy at the club, wasn't it, on guard pulling, where you don't encourage it so much, is that right?
Yeah, so what I do with my guys is it's a joke. We joke about it, right? Like, if I felt like one of my guys was in competition at a decent level, let's say it's the Irish Open or something like that, and they're actually going there to win it. That's the main goal behind it. It's not going there to get experience. And I don't mean experience as in they're not going to win it anyway, so they may as well do it. If it's a smaller competition, I tell my guys, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Like, you're going to get that gold medal wrapped around your neck for whatever crap competition it is, with greatest respect. And everyone else is going to go on with their life. Like, you'll put it in a box under your bed. You'll probably forget. I think I've won tournaments and I've genuinely forgotten until years later that I won the tournament. So the way I look at that is go out there and actually try and develop your skills. Like, try the things you've been trying in training. So in that situation, I'm like, look, try some takedowns, you know? And my policy is, if you get taken down, let's say I tell you, Andy, look, go out, go for a takedown. And you end up getting taken down in the first 20 seconds. It doesn't work out for you. You end up getting taken down, right? And you lose 2-0. The problem there is not you getting taken down. The problem is you not being able to get back to a guard and sweep your opponent in 4 minutes and 50 seconds. You know, that's the way I try and teach. So guys are always trying to get like offensive and aggressive all the time. And I think in the future, like when guys are on a much bigger stage, let's say even the Irish Open, where it's a national title, there's some prestige to it. At that point, fair enough. If pulling guard is the right thing to do, 100% you should pull guard. But I think for development, you know, it's just too easy. As I said, pulling guard is not hard. It's more complex than people give it credit for. There's definitely a lot going on there with grips and all that kind of jazz. But it's an easier thing to learn than takedowns. So why not spend the time working on takedowns when you're in the smaller competitions? That's just my take. Have it as an option.
I remember I was at the IBJJF Dublin International a couple of years ago, and I was going into the final match, and Robbie Brennan came over to me and said, "Shoot a double on this boy." Yeah. And as soon as I grabbed, they just pulled guard. But I've never shot a double in a competition in my life at that stage.
Yeah. And that's kind of the point, right? Because like you're there at the IBJJF, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you want that win, right? You want that W. Whereas maybe if it was an in-house competition, or if it was a smaller competition local to you, it might have been easier for you to go, you know what, I'm just going to shoot this double and see what happens, see if I can actually do this technique. So that's why I'm a big advocate of. I think guys should really be trying to be developed themselves as complete grapplers. Like we have guys in here, I was saying about doing the wrestling earlier on, right? Hence the ear guards and the knee pads. I got my first set of wrestling boots in the way as well. I'll have to get on to Bill McCann now, see if I can get some tips. But for the wrestling, I'm pushing the wrestling because I think it's going to make guys' no-gi game better. And it's going to also make their MMA game better. It's not because we're going to become suddenly a wrestling club. That's all we do. Same with our judo. We train judo here one night a week on Friday nights, right? And it'll be one of our smaller attended classes because the no-gi guys are like, nah, you're grand. And, even the gi guys, there's definitely lads who will listen to me when I'm talking about the takedown game, but they're probably pulling guard, when it comes down to it. But by having one night a week of judo, it means that the guys literally have like an actual like 1-2 punch of techniques so they can pull off in competition. And when we go to compete, it really does show because the level of takedowns in jiu-jitsu is straight garbage. It is terrible, right? You get some anomalies out there that have 1 or 2 decent takedowns, but overall it is a disaster. And as a competitor, right, which is a small part of me, as a competitor, I've fed off that. I haven't pulled guard I've Tominagate, don't get me wrong, but I haven't purposely pulled guard in probably about 5 or 6 years in competition. I'll tell you, I'm not going to pull guard, but you have to take me down, right? And I've not been taken down. So it works out well in that regard because I do think it gives you that like scoring position. You're on top. You can get those 3 points if you pass that guard. You don't have to worry about getting a sweep and getting stalled out and a referee raising the other guy's hand because he was on top, and work it even though you might have been busting your bollocks from the bottom trying to make something happen. So yeah, I just think go for be well-rounded, try and develop some takedowns. And also it's Team Ryano, right? Judo is literally the base that this club came from. And that was one of the reasons why, like as a purple belt, I started doing judo. And it was because of the history of Team Ryano. Andy didn't ask me to do it. He wasn't like, you should go and you should do some judo if you want to be a black belt around here or anything like that. But if you look at the black belts that are in Team Ryano, Robbie Brennan, black belt, double black belt, judo and jiu-jitsu, right? And you just go up the list, Padraig as well, Padraig Tierney. There's loads of lads who are black belts in Team Ryano who are double black belts in judo and jiu-jitsu. And I think that's important. I think you need that. I think they need that kind of culture and you need that kind of base.
Yeah. Even in the northern teams like Peter McClay and Jason McCabe are both judo black belts as well. And then just on the different styles, Oisin, and this is a question that Kieran and I asked Andy about as well last week or 2 weeks ago. MMA heads, do you encourage them to do the gi stuff and the judo stuff, or do they? Yeah,
I do. Tend not to do everything. The way I put it to them is like this: like, let's say, for example, one of my guys is like, I'm not going to train the judo class because whatever, right? Because I don't think it applies to MMA. What's he doing during the hour and a half that we're here on a Friday night doing judo? Is he sitting on the pole at home? Don't tell me that he's getting better by doing that. I'm actually going to be better by not doing the judo class. Nah. That doesn't fly with me at all. I think it should just be training. So I think anything someone is doing is going to benefit them. I'll give you a good example, right, of judo and MMA. And it's actually from headquarters. Mark Gallopin.
Yeah.
Right. So Mark has a very, very nice ogashi, sort of hanagashi, haragashi variation, which does off the overhook. And Redzer is amazing at it as well. Anyone that's done like kind of no-gi stand-up with Redzer, even in the gi, he'll walk at you like this with his arm up. And you're kind of looking at the underhook going, there's definitely an underhook there, but should I take it? You're like, no, it's a trap. Don't do it, because it absolutely is a trap. The moment you put that underhook in, he just locks the overhook and sends you flying through the air with the hip throw. So, there's two guys. Sure, Redzer, he's hit that in a couple of fights. I think his last fight, he hit a beautiful hip toss as well. Both his takedowns in Redzer's last fight, if I remember correctly. One was an inside trip against the cage, absolute beaut. And then he hit a big hip toss as well. Two big judo moves. So, again, I don't think the idea of like judo not transferring into MMA counts. Could you make an argument that maybe they should be doing freestyle wrestling for that hour and a half instead? Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that'd be fair enough. But if the alternative is not training, it's not even a conversation to have. That drives me nuts, right?
What about BJJ then? So like no-gi obviously transfers really well. But what about the gi?
For judo?
For MMA.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, the same point, right? Like if you're down here and you're training in gi jiu-jitsu, the question is, what would you be doing if you weren't? Now, I'll tell you what I do with my MMA guys, right? When they come up here, they'll suit and boot, they'll put their belts on for a gi class. But when it comes time to roll, I have no problem with them ditching the jacket if they're going to roll, right? Because again, it's a little bit more specific. I used to buy into, and I still do to a certain extent, the idea that maybe gi jiu-jitsu makes your game a little bit more technical. Like you can't just power out of things to the same extent. You really need to get your angles right. You need to do small incremental escapes or small incremental creeps towards offense. I think that is true for most people because they're not working at a level of technique that they can sort of accommodate for that, if that makes sense. Like you shouldn't be able to power out of a no-gi armbar, but most people can because the no-gi armbar they're powering out of is not great, right? It's pretty loose. It's just grab the wrist, throw the hips up, or grab the elbow, throw the legs over the top. And there's no control there. It's different when you have a jacket to pull the person down. But yeah, I have no problem with lads ditching the jacket when they're doing their rolling. But I do think it's important. And it's also important too for belts. I'm not going to give a guy a belt if it's one of my students if he's not training in the gi. Because that's literally what the belt is for, right? If they're doing submission grappling, no gi, that's fine. It is a very closely linked sport, but it is a different sport, You look at no-gi. No-gi is wrestling with submissions, right? It's way more wrestling with submissions than it is jiu-jitsu. You look at Abu Dhabi, all the sweeps, right? It's all single legs. It's all lads coming up onto a single or a double.
Yeah.
Now you're seeing a little bit more leg entanglement stuff that's becoming sweeps, to be fair. Even like the classic Marcelo Garcia, arm drag, right? Arm drag into a low single to the back. That's wrestling, 100%. So yeah, I think lads should be doing it all. And again, it just depends on what the availability is from a club as well. If they were a purely no-gi club, then I'm sure that'd be great too. They're not going to lose out by not training the gi, in my opinion. Just the belts.
Yeah. Kieran, anything else from the stories yesterday?
Yeah, just one or two more. Favorite BJJ sequence?
Favorite BJJ sequence? Who asked that?
Alec.
Alex.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. So let me see. For me, it's always so we have pathways here that we teach, right? So I'll show you right here. Hold on. So this is super secret stuff, right? But this is one thing I like to teach here is pathways. So we have the Roger top pathway, the Roger bottom, the Maya, the Hickson, the Marcelo bottom, a few other ones, the Bernardo Faria, and we have a few other ones too, right? And the idea is that
the Kieran Bruin.
Yes, well, one day, you just got to show me that game, Kieran, and I will put it on the sheet, no question. Game recognizes game, but so with the pathways, the idea is that we kind of teach a sequence that we've seen a legend of the sport do. So my favorite one is probably, to be honest, it's the Hodger bottom, which is his sleeve drag.
Arm drag, yeah.
Right. I have seen that taught maybe 5 times, right? And all 5 times are not the way that he does it. I don't think very few people seem to realize exactly what he does, right? Everyone tries to prop up on an elbow when they're trying to get around the back as if they were doing a no-gi arm drag and they're reaching. Everyone tries to do that. If you watch Roger, he never ever comes up on his elbow. He's always on his shoulder. And it totally changes the sequence completely. Has to be with a gi, unfortunately. It doesn't work at all for no gi unless you had some sort of crazy, monstrous grip. But I love that one just from a technical perspective. Because
and he'll sometimes catch that armbar on the way around as well.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I'm such a big fan of that because it's so subtle. Like I said, like I really don't think I think a huge amount of people think they know how to do that technique. I think very few people actually know how to do that technique. Because if you actually watch Hodger Gracie, right? Here's one for you. He is the trickiest bastard out there. And I'll tell you why. It's because every time he teaches one of his signature techniques, he teaches it the opposite way to how he does it in competition. I swear to God, even like some of the paid for content that gets leaked here and there, because I'm not buying it, but even some of the paid for content, he is teaching it different to how he does it in competition. This lad cannot let go until he finally decides he's 110% retired, I don't think you're going to see him teach this stuff. Or maybe he only teaches it in his academy, because loads like his cross choke setups, you show him, he shows it to you in a YouTube video. It's garbage. It's absolutely not how he does it. There's actually a great video with Helson Gracie. And Helson's talking about this. He's out in his back garden. He's basically showing how Hodger does his cross choke. And he's like, oh, he says he does this. It's bullshit, right? He shows how to actually do the thing. It's brilliant. I have to find it. But I'm a big fan of that sequence. My favorite, though, is the original one that we came up with, which was the Hickson. And one of my students, Owen McDonald, hates this now, right? Because he thinks Hickson is a sham. But I believe in Hickson, personally, right? I think the guy was legit, super legit for his time. And I think he'd still be fairly legit now. But Hickson's one is basically, it's a back take from mount off the gift wrap, right? So it's the classic one, the classic photo of Hickson in the beatdown position where he gift wraps the guy's arm, hand is up here, and he's punching him in the face. But he does a back take from there where everybody else would chair sit and just pull the guy on top. What Hickson does is he actually pulls the lad into the knee and drives the weight forward. So he drives you down on top of his hooks and he smashes your two hands directly underneath your own body. So you see, he does it against the wrestler in the second Valley Tudo Japan, the one that Choke was about, that documentary. The wrestler who he chokes out, who did the big high crotch and Hickson jumped over the top of it. When he chokes him out, you'll see the wrestler's two hands are completely stuck under his own body while Hickson sticks the rear naked choke in. It's not an accident. It didn't just happen. He has a sequence for that, and it's really nice. So that's probably my favorite.
See the way you're talking about Hodger not giving away all his tricks. John Danaher's got a ton of instructionals out there, and his death squad still wins everything that they do. Do you think that he's giving all the information across?
No, I wouldn't be giving it all, but I think as well it's reps, because they've been repping that since, I think he was talking about, I think he said it was like 2016, I think is when they really started making progress. So these lads have all just been in the lab there in New York, just working on this stuff. Like all the time that they were training and coming up, Marcelo's was by far the gym to go to for competition. I know I went there twice, right? Little did we know that these lads were all in a basement, like 4 streets up, and they were working on this. And it's just reps, because I think you can see it and you can be shown the technique. And this is kind of the point I made about competitors earlier on. Like if you say you're a competitor, you have to be putting in specifically reps in what you plan on doing in competition. Like nothing else, right? Nothing else. That's, a coach should be doing the opposite, in my opinion. The competitor, it's all about doing specific reps. And those lads have been doing specific reps now for like 6-7 years on this stuff. So nobody's going to catch them.
I have to say this because I'm a huge Marcelo fan. A lot of the stuff that Gordon Ryan showed from his butterfly guard is Marcelo stuff.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because again, that's what everyone does. They all take from. It's the cool thing about like the modern age, right? Which is pretty much what we've all existed in. But with YouTube being so available, so many matches that are actually on YouTube that you can watch. I mean, you can watch it in slow-mo if you want to and break down the exact techniques, the exact grips. It's kind of the point I was making about Hodger. You watch his matches, they look completely different to what he actually shows when he's showing a technique. Like I know Dara O'Connell, for example, he credits Marcelo as being his biggest, his biggest, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, he copied his game. So he talks about it. He's like, oh man, Marcelo was just the guy. And, I copied his X guard. And then, of course, Dara, for anyone that was around during his rise, Dara's game was X guard, 100%. He had a great X guard, hit that little kind of, we call it the timber sweep, just chopping the ankle out in the bottom just over and over again on the way up. But it's often just having video. He wasn't going to train with Marcelo.
Yeah, I think a lot of your X guard stuff's Marcelo's as well, isn't it, right?
Say again?
For Kieran, I think that a lot of your X guard stuff you said that you sort of got from Marcelo as well.
Yeah, like I suppose when I was a white belt, blue belt, pretty much exclusively like just basically watched Marcelo, and then found my way into leg locks because it's like the gateway drug, X guard. It's not that hard to just start training it with the leg lock sequences, and then basically watching Danaher's guys, like it just all fitted together quite nicely that way,
Yeah. And Oisin, touching on what you were talking about just there now as well, about YouTube footage, I guess that probably ties in a wee bit with how, like, the importance of lineage is probably just a wee bit less important now because maybe 20 years ago, your lineage was responsible for how you were coached, but it's less so now just because of the accessibility to information.
That was exactly my point earlier, right? Like I said, I mean, I think lineage is all about taking pride in where you come from, right? Like good people, good instructors. I'm very lucky in that I've had great instructors in all martial arts that I've done over the years. I'm blessed, right? I never ended up with some charlatan that was just bullshit. You know, there's no way you can say that Andy Ryan is bullshit, right?
Yeah.
No way. Like he's an absolute animal. You know, and the same is true of everyone I've come up through with karate and all that kind of stuff. So I think realistically now, you will be taught techniques in class. And I think that's enough, depending on if you're lucky enough that those techniques happen to match your body type. And you just sort of, maybe you decide you're going to focus on that and that's it. If your body type, for example, matched your coach and he was very good at one thing and he teaches you that one thing he's very good at, I think you're going to have a lot of success. But if it was completely the opposite end of the spectrum, like take Bernardo Faria, for example, right? 2 moves, over, under, pass, and then he's got the Faria half guard, which we're big fans of here as well in the team. But will that work for somebody who is much smaller than him? Or maybe even someone who's a bit taller and maybe skinnier in the same weight class? If it did, I'd imagine we would have seen it already. You know, there's a couple of guys out there that do similar stuff, like Murillo Santana's stack passing. I know Galval likes a bit of stack passing here and there, which is going to come back in a major way, by the way, because that's the answer to the leg locks. So that's one of the answers to the leg locks is the stack pass. But yeah, I don't think you're going to see that many Bernardo Farias, despite the success. You know, like nobody had an answer for you. See Cyborg getting swept by him with this look in his face, like, here we go. You know, you just can't do it because he's in his world, and his world just matches his body type, and his knowledge is whatever it is. That's what makes this game so cool. Everyone is going to have a different game that suits them and suits their attributes and stuff like that. So I think realistically, you're not going to find a coach anywhere that's going to be able to show you every detail of your specific game, unless you're super lucky that it just happens to be the same body type and stuff like that. So I think if you're not spending time on YouTube, I think you're missing out. But here's the thing. I think you should be going to your coach with that stuff. I don't think guys should be going it alone for 2 reasons. Like, one, because a good coach will see the link between what you're trying to work on and maybe pre-existing parts of your game, or maybe another set of techniques that could go really well with it. If I get one of my guys comes to me and he goes, look, Oisin, I've been practicing this thing from YouTube. I'm not going to go, just stop with that YouTube shit. You know, I'm going to say to him, really, show me. I want to see it, because it might be something I've not seen before. So I'll sit down and go through it. And then I'll either go, look, I love it. That's brilliant. You should probably maybe try adding this as well. Or I might go, I don't know if that's for you. I don't think it's going to suit your body type, you know, or you're making yourself vulnerable in this case. You asked the question about MMA and the transitions between no-gi and gi, same conversation, right? If you get a guy who's working on something that's very jiu-jitsu specific and it's going to put him in danger for MMA, for ground and pound and stuff, that's the coach's job to step in there and say, look, it's great. It's a deadly technique, but it's not for you, not for what your goals are. And I also think, so I know I don't talk that much. I also think that when you're talking about YouTube videos and stuff like that, there's so much technique out there. Like, this game is endless. We all say it, right? It is an endless game. We could have 2 or 3 lifetimes and be on the mats every day, all day, and someone is still going to turn around and just show you something you've never seen before. It's mad. So I think to get that information, or as much information as you can in whatever area you're trying to get it in, you have to be doing the extra work. And if you're not serious about it, in my opinion. Or at least, you know, not serious as maybe as a coach, right? So like, I do more, having learned from the best guys in the country. On top of that, I put in more hours on video, I reckon, than anybody else that you've ever met, right? Easily 6+ hours a day, every single day for over a decade. I'm putting in on additional work, on video, on study. That's what I mean with the coaching side of things. That's my job. My job is to have the answers for my students. And I think if guys aren't doing that, they're going to fall behind. Because even in terms of the game, if you are working on something right now, nobody knew about the leg locks coming out of Danaher's in 2016, right? Just, it took the world by storm. Right now, something's happening. It could be wrestling cradles. It could be, you know, a return to stack passing. But right now, somewhere, someone's working on something that's going to revolutionize the game again. So I think if you stay stuck on one thing for any period of time, you're going to get left behind in terms of technique, the technical side of things. There is no right answer forever. There's only the right answer for now. And you need to be like a Joe Schmidt in rugby or something like that. You need to constantly be trying to find out what the next step is in your technique to stay ahead of the game. So that's the goal.
Perfect. Good stuff. Kieran, anything else on the stories?
Let me just double check. I think we got through to most of them, lads.
Yeah.
Let me just double check.
And we're pretty well on for time as well. It's coming up on an hour, like.
Oh, now I can keep going.
I want to ask you something away from BJJ, and that's like how I've been trying to trigger everybody so far. You're the Taoiseach, okay? And you have to decide on what's happening now for opening up the country again. Okay, what's your decision? What do you do?
If I'm the Taoiseach,
Yeah.
From the very start, my take would have been to protect, to pour all the resources, basically, have everybody working, collect that tax revenue and whatever else, and pour all the resources into protecting the people that are most vulnerable, and the elderly, as well as possible. You know, what happened down here was we obviously have what will become an even bigger scandal, but we had the nursing home scandal, and I think that could have been averted. I think if the resources had really been poured into that, and that had been the sole focus of making sure that was perfect, I think there could have been a lot of deaths avoided there potentially. I would, if it was today, right now, I wouldn't be opening things up until the vaccine levels get to a height that we can actually potentially do that. You know, the numbers of people dying every day, unless you believe that the actual numbers of people dying is fake. And I know some people have the opinion that it's like been assigned to, you know, it's the flu, it's being reassigned as COVID and stuff. But unless you believe the numbers of people are dying, it's too consistent and the numbers are too high. And that's with 400 and something cases a day. I know it's from 2 weeks before is how it kind of works. But I think if we just went, like Christmas, I think was the lesson there. The reality is so many people didn't stay away from their family at Christmas. They went and had the big Christmas. I know friends of mine who went and did the big Christmas thing, and somebody happened to be COVID positive, and next thing you know, the entire family are COVID positive. Next thing you know, somebody's in the ICU, another one's, you know. So for me, I wouldn't be opening until we had the vaccine levels up a bit in a month, 2 months time, potentially, maybe more. It's a really, really tough situation, but they've made a bollocks of it. They've made an absolute balls of it, there's no question. I just think it could have been worse. Could be worse if that was allowed.
The one thing I would say about the closing down and the restrictions, and it's probably like I need to say this to both of you, is you have both been really proactive and adapting really fast. And Oisin, I love the way that you were straight away onto the outdoor sessions during the restrictions last time, and same with yourself, Kieran, with the online Zoom stuff and as well. So like the both of you have been like really proactive, and I guess that's the best way to try and navigate around this if you're a martial arts instructor at the minute as well. Did you have challenges with that, or Oisin, or is this something that you just like dreamed up straight away and got straight on it?
No, I just jumped straight into it because my take on it is I don't like. I know where people are coming from when they're talking about things like reopen the gyms because of mental health or people's health and ability to exercise and stuff like that. I get where people are coming from. I know it's from a good place for the most part, but I think what that does is it actually disempowers people to take responsibility for their own health. So like, I never ran consistently, except when I was 16 for like 6 months. I never ran consistently until the first lockdown. About a month into the first lockdown, I went, you know what? Let's go. And I got out on the road and I was absolutely shit. I had 3 kilometers, I almost died. And I just built it up until I was doing 5Ks. So I did something that I don't like, but it's because I don't have anything else to do. I can't roll, I can't do kickboxing, I can't do this, you know. Now I've got bags hung in the gym that we didn't have before, so I'm able to do some extra stuff on the cardio side of that as well. But I think it's about empowering people, regardless of the situation. I think it's about giving them the option to help them as much as possible. I don't think that necessarily giving out about something that isn't going to change realistically in the next couple of months. Like even let's say people were right about the COVID situation being mishandled and stuff like that. It's not going to change in the next 3 months. And at that point, we're at the levels of the vaccine where it'll ease anyway. Hopefully, as long as there's no new strains and all that jazz. But instead, I would say, why not spend that time just being as proactive as possible? Just get people moving, give them the resources. Like there's only a small percentage of what I've done is actually public. Most of it's unlisted on YouTube. So like give them technique videos, give them breakdown videos of different matches, give them home workouts that they can do Zoom classes, organize meetups, even if it's socially distanced to do a run, whether it's against restrictions or not, it's common sense, like have two people meet in a park, stay 10 meters away from each other and start running, just so someone else is there. I think that's the kind of stuff that we all need to focus on. That's what I focused on. And I think for our team, at least so far, everyone is really positive. Everyone can't wait to get back training. Like we're all dying to do it. But for the most part, I think everyone's staying the course. They're all on track in terms of their fitness and stuff. People are doing stretching at home and they're doing technique. So that's it. Just stay positive.
And are the restrictions making it harder for you to prep your fighters for up and coming?
No, it will be slightly that we could potentially have, right? So even within like the serious competitors or guys who are looking for fights or are being matched, you're going to have a small percentage that maybe they have a relative at home that's vulnerable, and they just don't think it's worth it. It's not worth the risk to them. Even if it means they can't compete this time round, they'll still stay away for 3 months, and that might be a body that someone else could have really done with. But that's the only restriction. Apart from that, the guys are still training 6 days a week here, 2 days in most cases. So, we're good to go.
And how many would you have in that training pod?
In that training pod, there's probably about 8 total. I think it is mix of pros and amateurs.
The numbers are small.
Yeah, exactly. The numbers are kept small. Everyone's on their best behavior insofar as we have the discussion. Like the worst thing that could happen to us in terms of the fighter preparation is somebody becoming COVID positive. That's the worst thing, because then everybody will become COVID positive, and that's the fight. The fights are off at that point. So that's the disaster situation. So everyone knows, this is the only. As I said, it's a pod, right? Of high level athletes, professionals. So this pod is the only social interaction that they should be having. As I say to them all the time, if you were over at a mate's having a coffee yesterday, don't turn up for training. Just don't show your face. That's it. That's the responsibility that they have. Because again, I don't care what their opinion of it is. I just don't care. I don't care if they think COVID is real or not. I don't care if they think it's overblown or not. I care about the guys who have fights coming up that have to turn up on the day COVID free, in shape. So I'm not even having a conversation apart from that. As long as you get there, I'm happy. So that's the.
No, that's a good attitude. And then last question from me. If you had a crystal ball, when do you think things are going to be normal? If that's ever going to happen?
I think kids will be back in our place in where are we now? March. I think May is when we'll see the kids back. It might be outdoors potentially. And if it is outdoors, I think everyone is back outdoors. And we'll do that. I mean, April, thank you very much. That's good enough weather for me. We'll have everyone outside in the sun, hopefully, and doing what we can. As I say, not focusing on what we can't do, just doing what we can. And then fully back, hopefully May, but I'd say more realistic, probably
early summer.
June, July, or August. I think it'll be somewhere in that period. I think the reality is they will ease things very slowly. I think we got stung badly at Christmas as a nation. We got stung real bad at Christmas. And I think because of that and because of the other variants talk and stuff like that, I think unfortunately they're going to be really, really cautious with the easing of restrictions. I say we're looking at going from level 5 to level 4 for a period of maybe a month, then level 4 to 3, which still doesn't really help us for indoor training. It's level 2 is when we can get back to indoor training with contact in a pod system. So I think realistically, we're probably looking at maybe July or August, but hopefully not. Hopefully it all goes great and we get there quicker.
Yeah. I'm done, Ken. Have you anything else?
No, I think that's everything, lads. That was absolutely savage, Oisin. Brilliant to talk to you. Good to see you.
And I know I talk too much, and hopefully I didn't offend anyone or say anything that was untoward or tactless, as has happened in the past. But
no, not on this one. I don't think. I think you were pretty PC, pretty well. if anybody between the three of us is going to say something to piss somebody off, it'll probably be me. And I think I was even well behaved tonight.
But looking, lads, I'm looking forward to getting some rounds in with you when this is all passed.
Do you know what I was just going to say to you as well, Oisin? I want you to come up and I want you to go through that Hodger Gracie chain for me, if possible.
I will. No problem at all.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, mate.
Give you a little detail here or there that Hodger himself wouldn't show you, because he wouldn't show anyone. So yeah, I will. I'd love to. Sounds great.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure, man. And Kieran, I want you down here for no leg lock seminar one of the days if you're up for it.
As soon as I can, man. As soon as I can.
Sounds
I'm
great.
looking forward to it.
Maybe a dash of yoga thrown in there as well. Surely the yoga game will improve your leg lock game, no doubt, right?
Yeah, well, like I can nearly do the splits now, so you know you're not going to catch me in any banana splits or anything weird like that anymore.
Then his X guard doesn't work, right? That was my defense for X guard for years. Just drop into the splits when
Yeah,
someone.
exactly.
Love it. Good man. Great stuff, guys. Thanks a minute for the time.
Cheers,